You said 2 words on X. You said, good grief.
I was watching it by myself downstairs, and I laughed out loud. Look, I was entertained.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the most outrageous one I've ever seen right there. It wouldn't have been if it had just been joy, but getting two in one whack, man, that was huge.
It's the Kenny Wallace Conversation, brought to you by JEGS.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kenny Conversation, brought to you by JEGS, the leader in high-performance aftermarket car parts. Remember to go to jegs.com to get anything you want to fix your hot rod up or everyday vehicle. And remember, they've got Jeep parts and truck parts in stock right now. Well, you're looking at him, NASCAR Hall of Famer. He's won more races than you and I will ever think of. And this is called Catching Up with Mark the Kid Martin. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be with you here, Kenny.
You know, Mark, I've known you my whole life, and it just feels so good for me to say Mark the Kid Martin, because you started racing at such a young age. Do you remember who named you that?
Pretty sure it was Bob Seneker.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bob Seneker. Bob was had one of those real quiet sense of humors, kind of like Matt Kenseth. A lot of sense of humor, but not. He doesn't say a lot, but when he does, sometimes it's funny. So
yeah.
I think he did. He also called me Captain Crunch once, which really hurt my feelings in 1977. But I learned not to wreck so much. I wasn't wrecking. The people in front of me were wrecking, and I was hitting them. And I couldn't understand why Bob and Dick Trickle and those guys could miss the wreck and I couldn't. But somehow or another, after a couple of years, I started missing them just like they did.
You know what? You just gave me a very good topic. Isn't that something about racing? Roger Penske would say, we create our own luck. I don't know how much I don't know how much I believe that, because you're right. I mean, there could be a deal where, you're going down into turn one at Dover and somebody blows a motor in front of you and you're in their oil. And then it can happen week after week. Bad luck does happen, doesn't it, Mark?
Well, you can create your good luck, but you can't create, you don't create your bad luck. I mean, it's just, some people have more of it than others. And I probably had more than my share in NASCAR. But yeah, I mean, I get what Roger's saying, but I also think that you can, if you just have one untimely event that you can't control, that can destroy a win or a championship or, anything that you're trying to achieve. Sometimes things are just not in your control.
And before we move on, a great example was Dale Earnhardt Sr. going down the back straightaway, coming to the checkered flag, and I guess he hits a seagull or whatever, blows the tire out, and Derek Cope wins the race. Now, that's bad luck, wouldn't you say, Mark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dale had horrific luck in the Daytona 500. Leading up to his win, I think he had won something like 44 races at Daytona.
Yeah.
But the 500 just would not budge. Finally, they broke through there.
Yeah, I like that subject. And one more thing, when we create our own luck, I would say that's because I'm going to use you as an example. Mark Martin is such a great chassis man. I grew up watching you work on your cars. I think creating luck is Mark would make his car handle for his ability. And I think that's, making a fast race car maybe is what Roger Penske was talking about.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, Mark, let's do it. We're catching up with Mark Martin, and it is a lot of fun to follow you and your son Matt and the Mark Martin archives. It's a big hit on Instagram. We all watch. We get to see another side of you, and it looks like you are in that beautiful coach of yours, Bus, and you're everywhere. Charlie's going to drop some pictures in here, but you all have been everywhere. Where have you been that is totally different, that was really interesting?
Oh my goodness. Well, we were just in Newport, Rhode Island, for the second time, actually, looking at old historic architecture, homes that were built in the 1600s. We had dinner in the oldest restaurant in the United States.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, almost 400 years. I think they opened in 1670 something, and it was the best meal we had, and we ate good the whole trip. But that was absolutely spectacular, and it was an old building. They preserve so much more there than they do, around here. There's old things get tore down and new modern stuff gets built, and that's okay. But it's amazing to see some of the old history. So that was probably that was a fun trip. We did the IROC thing, and then we went to car museums in Newport and saw these homes, and then we went up to Bentley Warren's. And,
oh my!
I mean, I'm telling you, Bentley. His saying is, "Who has more fun than us? We do." That's for sure. I love Bentley and just hanging out with those guys, and we had just a fantastic trip. And I'm off to State Park Speedway in Wausau, Wisconsin. Going to have a big time there. It's been, I think I raced there. The only time I think I ever raced there was 1977. I remember going to Larry Deacon's body shop and working on the car before that night. That was Thursday, race Thursday nights through the summer. And we went and did that regular show. And I vividly remember going out to qualify that night because I went out on stickers and it was cool and a little slippery. And I couldn't believe that I went faster.
Yeah, and I remember Larry Deacon's, Rusty and I were in the body shop. I just want to show everybody, look at Mark Martin, his Instagram. Mark's always advertising nowadays. Mark, I really like the way you have taken to social media. This is your advertisement for State Park. Larry Deacon's was a legend. I admired that he ran a body shop, and sadly we lost him at Kakana, I believe it was, off turn 2. That's another subject. I'd like to go back to your northeastern trip in Rhode Island, though. What keeps drawing you back to that area?
Well, it is the most historic. I mean, that's where it started, Plymouth Rock.
Yeah, South America.
And they have been very conscious of preserving the history there. So the roads, like if you go into Newport and some of these places, like the streets are not quite wide enough for, because they didn't need wide streets back then with the horses and the carriages and whatnot. I mean, they have preserved it. And there, as you see, if you follow me, which you do, you see that, I think Matt's had an influence on me to really appreciate the history, not only of this country, but of motorsports, which we love so much. That's why I wanted, to pay and be at the Larry Phillips Memorial race there, just to show, that we should remember, and we have to remember where we came from, whether it's motorsports or whether it's, as a country itself. You think about those people sailing over here on those ships for months to get to, the new world.
It is amazing, isn't it?
It is. And that area is called New England because, it was. I mean, it was a new country, and it's just fascinating to think about what it was like here 400 years ago.
So I've got some great things to talk about. We're going to talk about IROC. We're going to talk about the Larry Phillips Memorial race that you were just at, NASCAR, Scott Bloomquist. let's go back real quick. You looked good. You said you ate really good. What are you eating nowadays when you have a dinner like that? Do they got some things that you like? You know, you look good.
Yeah, I'm eased up a little bit on my diet now. I'm not training, as hard. I do exercise, but I don't lift heavy weights anymore. Beat myself up, my body up pretty badly, and I struggle with pains from
Yeah.
all those years of hammering the weights and stuff. So I had lobster ravioli,
Ooh.
and every bite of it was like candy. It was so damn
Like
good.
ice cream.
Yeah, man, it was so good. I do sort of limit my carbs to a degree, but I've even eased up on that a little bit. I think I think it's hereditary, but I am borderline pre-diabetic,
Mm,
even though I'm skinny,
ain't that
and
something?
so I try to ease, be easy on the carbs, and the carbs that I do have, I try not, try to have fruit for carbs, which is like candy to me as well. So, but I eat fish and chicken and uh, vegetables, lots of vegetables and lots of protein shakes. My protein shake will gross most people out, but I have it for effect.
Yeah.
I put frozen broccoli and
Oh,
avocado in my protein shake, and I mean it's a health, rocket ship.
yeah.
So and I try to get some greens every day, and I eat a lot of vegetables and a little bit of fruit.
My favorite thing about food is when I repeat what you taught me. Sometimes I go to Texas Roadhouse and I'll ask for a plain sweet potato. And by the way, Mark Martin says this is rocket fuel.
It is. It is. Certainly is.
Yeah, I love that. You taught me a lot about food. For everybody that is out there listening, Mark, I do want to share with you that my blood sugar was at 121, 122. And my doctor said, hey, you need to watch your blood sugar. So it was hard on me, Mark, but I quit Coke, Pepsi, sweet tea. I got rid of all that stuff. I said, let me try this on my own. And if you remember way back, 2012, I called you and I said, Mark, teach me how to eat. And I want to thank you in front of everybody. You've changed my life. You really have. And remember, I would text you during dinner, Mark, what about this? And you would go, no.
Well,
So,
that's good. That's good, Kenny, and it's hard to do, especially people giving up, soft drinks, and
yeah.
even the artificially sweetened soft drinks are not good for you, and they do affect your blood sugars as well. So I'm glad that you're trying to do something about it. You don't want to wind up being a full blown diabetic, and I don't either. So that's why I have to watch it. But it's funny that we're two skinny guys, slim guys, not what you would typically expect to have, high glucose or blood sugar levels. So your diet definitely affects it.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it like this. My wife is got diabetes too, and she got a little weight on her, but she's beautiful. And Kim says to me with that mean look, she goes, even skinny people, can be diabetic. So she's right, and you just proved it, Mark. So
Yep.
all right, listen, let's move on to IROC. Let's kind of go in chronological order here. I saw you up there in the Northeast. You went to IROC. It looks like Ray Evernham has started this baby up, and he called in all the cars. Tell me about the phone call, and did you have an IROC car?
So I did. I actually have two cars, but one I would never move out of my museum because my fifth and final championship was won at Atlanta in '05, and I got that car right off the racetrack. And it was a little physical. It's got front bumper and back bumper damage from pushing and shoving and all that. It's never been cleaned. It's got the rubber on it and everything. So that thing's perfect. But I had a '95 IROC car. It's Avenger, and it's been in the museum for 30 years. And I didn't even know it had an engine in it. You know, I'm just out doing everything. I don't pay no attention. Got that car. So when Ray put this thing together and he's gathering up cars, I called down to the dealership and I said, go out there and lift up the hood and see if there's an engine in it. They come back and said, yeah, there's an engine in it. And so I called Ray and I said, Ray, I'll send this car to you if you'll get it run. I don't have anybody to work on it. And he said, yeah, send it over. He rebuilt the carburetor and the fuel cell and the fuel system and changed the oil and rebuilt the brakes. And that thing ran perfect. We ran that thing and, oh gosh, we had a blast. And I don't know if it's official or not, but I heard, and it might've been exaggeration. I heard it was the biggest crowd Lime Rock had ever had, for that event. So we had a blast and it was so much fun hanging out with, of course, you know, Schrader and Biffle and, you know, all those guys. But, you know, Danny Sullivan was there and I got to hang with Danny and you know, Skinner, Hornaday, you know, it was a racers reunion. And I was really afraid because practice, Skinner, those guys still race. Bobby Labonte, Skinner.
Yeah, they're still going.
They're still going, Schrader. And so I knew that there was going to race was going to break out when we did our exhibition. And I didn't want no part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not. I am not going to compete because it sucked the life right out of me. For 40 years, you know, I let it suck the life out of me and I got life now and I'm not going to compete. I don't even want to play cards. Right. I don't even want to play cards because I want to win. I don't like that. So anyway, everybody played night. They got going fast in practice. Like, and I love Schrader. You know how Schrader is. Schrader's like, so they said like, well, I think Schrader asked how fast they going. Well, Skinner just went you know, 05 and you're a 09. And,
here we go.
and he said, and they said, you worried about that 4 seconds? And Schrader said, well, what did he exactly say? Something about,
something
he was
funny.
Whatever age, and he's plans on living 20 more years, and that 4 seconds could have a direct effect on.
Because he might wreck. He might wreck.
It was awesome, man. I loved it. So he's right. So everybody behaved during the race exhibition, but you know, had cars from 70 representing 73 all the way through 2006 when, you know, the last year that they had it. It was a big hit. And Ray Abraham and Rob Kaufman are, you know, teaming up and working on, you know, doing more events, historical events. Would love to have the series back in full form, but that's going to be quite a challenge. But the historical thing is a great draw for fans. You know, they got to come down and see the cars. I hung around the whole time, signed autographs, took pictures, and told stories.
Yeah. So this is catching up with Mark Martin. If you want to go in depth with Mark and hear how competition wore on him, go right here on YouTube and check out the Kenny Conversation with Mark Martin. Mark does go in depth about how harsh, you know, competition is. So we're not going to go down that road, but scroll right here. We had a good one with Mark about a year and a half ago, and he explains why he has chosen not to compete anymore. Because like Mark said, and Mark, I agree with you, because Father John told Kim and myself when we did pre-Cana, because she's Catholic, he said, oh, be careful, young man. Competition will kill you. And he meant just the way you're talking, you know, because we all want to win. We're the greatest, you know. And
exactly.
Okay, so IROC was fun. It looks like Ray has got a lot going on there. Let's kind of end that IROC conversation like this. It looks good. Where do the cars go now? Do they stay there with him? When is the next event? What's up?
They haven't announced the next event yet, but they are working on that. My car went back to his shop. Some of them may have went back, you know, Bobby Labonte had a beautiful car there. I think Schrader may have had his own car there. I don't know if they get them back or if they I'm just leaving mine at Ray's because it'll be there for next time, you know. And I'm going to go participate. As everyone should know,
Yeah.
IROC was the crown jewel of my career.
And I do want to talk about that. I'm glad you reminded me because I have the note here. Mark Martin, you were by far the greatest, the winningest IROC driver. Why were you so good against every race car driver in the world? They brought in every discipline. Al Jr., you name it, Ari Leindyke, Steve Kinzer. But you just, and I'm saying this, you kicked everybody's butt. You won more races than anybody. Why do you think you were so good in IROC?
Well, one of the reasons was that I excelled at lower power cars, like the Bush or Xfinity now, the trucks. My Cup car was underpowered for many years.
Way.
And I had to focus on handling and on momentum, and I became very good at center of the corner speed and momentum and exit speed. My entrance wasn't as good as some people's. Like I'd get in easy, but I would set my car up. Actually, it looked loose, and it was loose, but it was usually a tighter setup than most folks, because I actually got back in the gas as soon as I got to the corner. Because there ain't no passing going on going into the corner. It's all from the middle off and carrying down the back, the straightaway. So I was good at that. And I like to say that you drew for the car. You didn't know what car you were going to drive until right before the race, and you drew for the car. And I always drew the fastest car.
Oh, yeah, right. Look, don't listen to him, race fans. He's being humble. Mark, when I think about center of the corner speed and keep it rolling, I think of David Pearson and Butch Lindley. You and I have been racing so long, that we heard about how Pearson would let off, and he would end. They would say that he started getting on the gas at Darlington as he'd entered the corner. And Butch Lindley, they say he never used brakes. But really good stuff. And thank you for taking me down. And now I want to say this. I feel a little proud that I knew you were going to say momentum, roll the corner, because boy, when I would be on top of that Busch Grand National hauler and I would watch you go down the back straightaway at Charlotte, you had this big high entry, higher than anybody. And everybody, we all tried to emulate you. And you were just the best at it. You would roll in high and go down that white line. You would just kill everybody, and win every Busch race.
I know you're trying to keep this short, but I got to tell a quick story about that. Charlotte,
okay.
When it was steel guardrail in the corners, you would get at the end of the straightaway and the concrete would end, and you could actually turn right. So I'd go down the straightaway and get right at the end where you turn in to 3, and I'd turn right and then get my arc.
Get ready to exit that corner. Okay, like you said, Mark, catching up with Mark Martin, we want to be careful. Some fans do want us to go an hour, but we'll try to keep it a little shorter, everybody. All right, let's move on. So far, we see you traveling the United States. We talked about that, historical sites, Rhode Island. We talked about IROC. Let's talk about our hero, Rusty Wallace's hero, your hero, mine, many people in the Midwest. You were just at the Larry Phillips Memorial, and I thought it was really awesome because you're somewhat shy, but I saw you giving a little talk before the race, and that made me very happy, and I commented on it. You responded. Tell me about the Larry Phillips Memorial over the weekend.
Well, it was a great event. Terry was there, and when you see Terry, you see Larry.
Don't you
see the mannerisms, you see that stuff.
Smart ass.
I spent the whole night telling stories and remembering 1977 when we raced out at the fairgrounds. And of course, every time I tell any story back then, Rusty's in it. Rusty was a huge figure in my life and in my career all the way back to 1977. But it was just absolute honor to be a part of it and to see people and try to remind people they don't realize Larry Phillips was a racing god. Absolutely. And I know that it's probably going to come up, but I can't hold back here. The reason that Larry, in my opinion, the reason Larry's not in the Hall of Fame is because none of the people that are voting for him ever had to race against him or watched him race. And if they had, he'd already be in.
And let's start right there. I want to prove to people this. I have my notes, and I'm glad you touched on it because you just opened it up, and we're going to get there quicker than what. So here it is right here. You see that right there. I said, is NASCAR so here's the question. The NASCAR Hall of Fame. Now, this is my opinion, but I want to hear what you say. It just seems like the NASCAR Hall of Fame is Northeast dominant. Richie Evans, Cook. It just seems like everybody that votes, everybody that goes at Hall of Fame. Now, listen, I love Dave Moody, but he's just Northeast. And just everybody in NASCAR is Northeast. Why is Larry Phillips, the great one, right there with Dick Trickle, why is he not in the NASCAR Hall of Fame? And you already said a little bit, but I want you to expand on that. And am I right? What is this voting system?
Well, unfortunately, every year when he misses the cut and doesn't get in, somebody new comes into the fold, and they, and they're picked, above Larry. Now, your little paper there should say that he won something like 88% of every single race NASCAR, weekly regional race he ever ran.
NASCAR regional.
Yeah, that's like all but 12 out of 100 or something like that. That's 88 out of 100. It's unbelievable what he did in the NASCAR regional. I don't have great confidence that he'll ever make it in because someone new comes in every time that one goes out, and he's just not recognized for what he really did accomplish. And of course, Rusty, you and I are biased because we knew him besides NASCAR weekly racing program. We knew that he was just he was a racing god, a late model racing god.
And he built all his own race cars, and then he built the Ed Howe by Phillips, which my dad had one. Rusty had one. Did you ever have one of Larry's cars?
Oh yeah.
Right.
I took my '55 Chevy up there. My dad did in '75, and had Larry put a roll cage in it because we built our first car with water pipe. And so, and then the next year we went to late model, and Larry built a late model and hung the body on it, actually put a Camaro body on it. And so we ran that all of '76, won a bunch of races with it. So, and then in '77, the day I graduated from high school, I went to Springfield and got an apartment, and Larry gave me my first job, and he was testing me. The first day he opened up that door on Commercial Street, that back door, roll-up door, garage door, and there was an old Camaro sitting out there, and he said, "Gut your streetcar, and I got from a junkyard or something. Gut that thing out, and don't hurt the body. Cut all the interior out of it, but don't hurt the body."
That's a nasty job.
It's a nasty job, and I got right after it. I was tickled to death. I was going to learn how to be a shop guy and a fabricator and all that stuff. And Larry gave me my first job.
And my experience with Larry is that if you were worried about feelings, you should never be around him.
Yeah.
That's why us Midwesterners, I guess, are a little rough around the edges. I'll never forget, as a little kid, I might have been 9 years old, and I'm at Springfield, Missouri, where you and Rusty and Mark went at. You, Rusty, and Larry, Ozark Empire Fairgrounds, Springfield, Missouri. And somebody comes up, and they're just aggravating Larry for an autograph after the race. Larry, sign my autograph. And he said, boy, here's the dime. Call somebody who cares. I ain't got time right now. Because that's what a phone call would cost back then. 10 cents. And that, as a little kid, I'll never forget. He didn't have time. He was busy making a living.
That's right. He did. He had very little help. He worked on his cars, built those cars, and had some volunteer help, and that was the extent of it.
Well, Mark, before we go to the next subject, I'm just going to say this. I just can't fathom in my brain that Mark Martin, NASCAR Hall of Famer, Rusty Wallace, NASCAR Hall of Famer, Jamie McMurray, Carl Edwards, 4 of the best NASCAR drivers in history say, hey, why is Larry Phillips not in? And nobody listens. It's their loss. And I'm going to leave it right there. I just cannot get over that. And Mark, you're right. It's no, I'm saying this. They just never raced again. But here you all did, and I knew. So, all right. So I want to talk about, we're going to end with NASCAR, but I want to talk about something that's sad, but we're going to try to have a little fun with it. Lately here, we lost the greatest dirt racer of all time, Scott Bloomquist. My disclaimer is this before we talk about him. I feel like Scott Bloomquist had a lot of Batesville, Arkansas in him. He won 6 of the topless races, some of the biggest races, the crown jewels. He won 6 topless races, meaning the top comes off the car. You can see the driver. He won 6 of them at your home track, Batesville. He became friends with one of your best friends, Larry Shaw. And let's go way back, Mark. Down there in Batesville, your track, they said, we're going to pay $100,000 to win a modified race. Well, your buddy Larry Shaw built this car, and there are stories galore. But Bloomer helped reinvent this car, and he won the race. What do you know about Scott Bloomquist and that whole Batesville, Arkansas story?
I just know of the legend of Scott Bloomquist, and it starts way back when he's a teenager. Is such a character, and he did win all those races, including the 100,000 to win mod race, which was years ago. It was really a lot of money back then. But then my partner, Lance Landers, he's got a race team, and he came to me and said, I'm not doing as good as I want to do what I need to do. And I said, you need to get the best cars and the best motors and the best people to work on it. And that's how you do it. And so, we determined that Bloomquist cars were going to be the best car for him. And so I went with him to Scott's shop, and
Wow.
Scott's he's quite a character. He we're supposed to meet him in the morning. He comes in about noon, comes in the shop. We're sitting in the shop waiting for him, and he says hi, and he says, I got to go make me a drink. He goes and makes him a drink.
Crown Royal.
Yeah, and comes back and sits down, and we make a plan, and so Lance runs these cars for a year, and so I go to some of the races and talk to Scott and stuff. So I have had a little bit of a closer time with him through that, and I just think that he's one of those guys that was so smart. He was brilliant guy. And some of those, if you notice, a lot of people through the years, through the history, that are just insanely brilliant, also are troubled to some degree.
Yes.
Or have some issues. Like Randy Sweet's one, I can't preach enough to people what, a genius Randy Sweet was. But he was also crazy.
Yes. Yes, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
And I think Scott, was kind of reminds me some of that, and he was his own person. He was the best thing that ever happened to late model dirt racing. He was the Dale Earnhardt in the face forever, and he just, he ran into some tougher times the last several years, but when Lance was running his car, Scott was still winning big time, and Jared was driving, that Bloomquist car, and Jared was, oh my gosh, he was fast. He would take my breath. Absolutely. He'd go out to qualify and just take my breath in that car. So we had a lot of fun. And it's a real sad thing to see Scott gone so early.
Yeah. And I do want to fill some dots there for the fans that are listening. When you talk about Lance Landers, that is the owner of Jonathan Davenport's car. And boy, Mark, just for a minute, I mean, by far, the latest, I'd say 5-6 years, Jonathan Davenport and your dear friend Lance Landers, they have just owned dirt racing, won $1 million, they've won everything there is to win. Lance really has it going on.
He really does. Not only does he have an incredible organization from top to bottom, like he's got the most incredible hauler. He's got the most incredible driver. He's got great people working on the cars, got an absolutely unbelievable shop, and he's got the best sponsors and the most sponsor dollars of anybody in the sport. And he credits me for telling him what to do. I encouraged him to spend the money. It costs a lot of money to have a Bloomquist car.
Yeah.
You didn't even own it. He's like, dude, it's like unbelievable. And go get the best. At the time, I wanted him to get, Durham Fords, Ford engines, get the best motors and the best cars you can get. And Jared ran the car for a while, and Lance and he decided that wasn't for them, and Lance got Davenport, and the rest is history. He got all that sponsorship because of performance, and you only get that performance if you get the best equipment and put the best people in place.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I want to brag on your father, Julian. As a child, I remember your father being first class all the time. I remember his jeans being perfectly ironed. Harry Gant had his jeans weren't as good as your dad's. And I remember everything when I would come to Arkansas, I would just marvel at how perfectly clean your father always was. He would come to the pit gate, and I know that's passed on down to you. And now I see Lance is the same way. Do you think you and Lance are somewhat living through your father?
Well, I know I am. And, Lance is the most special friend that I've ever had. I mean, we're just blood brothers.
That's awesome.
And we get each other, we're both off the center line a little bit, kind of off the beaten path. We're a little bit different people. But Lance is such a good quality dude. And he likes his stuff, perfect, absolutely more perfect than mine. His motorhome is cleaner than mine.
No,
I mean,
there ain't no way.
Well, dude, he ain't never drove it in the rain. He won't drive it in the rain. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. But back to him, he's the best partner I could have ever dreamed having in those car dealerships.
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted everything, and he always worked anytime he made a decision that had to do with money, he came to me first. He said, look, and I said, Lance, don't worry about it, man. You're running the show. I didn't run the show. He ran it 100%, but he always clued me in on whenever he was making any kind of decision of consequence, and just such a great guy.
And back to Bloomer one more time. I'm going to say what I think, and then you make it right. So what I heard was that if you bought a Scott Bloomquist car, it was like automatically $100,000. You had to sign a contract that if you no longer ran the car, you had to give the car back. Basically, you paid a lot of money and you never owned the car. Although, tell me what you know. Scott really guarded his knowledge. Like, okay, I'm going to give you the car. Now, if you want to know more, you got to pay a lot of money. Take me back to what you know about that.
So that's the way I remember it as well. That was the Connor. I remember that, and I was sold on it, and Lance was sold on it, and so we entered into it. And I don't think he ever regretted it. He had rocket ships for cars, and Scott, he was real. I mean, he twisted his cars. He knew when it was in the fixture in the jig. He knew how much he wanted. He didn't want it too stiff. He wanted it just so. He knew about the steel that went into the car. I mean, it was like insane, the detail that he knew about these cars, and he didn't want that stuff out there. And he did share information with, I say us, with Lance and Jared, and Jason Durham was working on the car then, was like the crew chief of the car, and they did share information. He was good. He made it good, and Jared, at times was faster than Bloomer. Yeah. Bloomer had a little bit better racecraft because of all of his experience, but Jared would take your breath away in that car, man. He was fast.
I remember, and I remember Jared coming to Granite City here, Tri-City Speedway, and biking down in turn 3, flipped violently, and I think that listen, Jared way more than me, but that was a violent wreck that took the breath out of him and the whole grandstands there. But well, what a sad time, and I want to end like this on Bloomer. I want to say this, and I want you to comment. You and I are of age now. I'm going to be 61 Friday, and you're just a couple years older than me. In my lifetime, whether it's an Elon Musk or an Einstein or a Scott Bloomquist, when those type of people talk, it's like, what are they saying? It's like they're so different. It's like I can't even, like, where are you going? It's strange. Like, it's like, do you know? Comment on what I'm trying to say.
Well, I know what you're saying. Some of it sounds insanity, but
gibberish, like.
but yeah, but sometimes there's some knowledge in there that you don't pick up, because you're thinking that this is some of that insanity coming out. But a lot of times with Scott, if you listen to the context of the whole thing, there would be a lesson in it, or there would be wisdom in it. And there, people that are, you and I are not that smart, so we're pretty easy to follow. But some people that are really, really brilliant aren't as easy to follow.
Well, what I find is that when you ask an incredibly brilliant person, and I'm using the word brilliant, not smart. When I ask a brilliant person a question, they never answer the question right away. They go back with some psychology lesson. Then they get, like you say, you got to listen from the beginning. It is interesting. Yeah.
And that's not easy for you or I, because we like to move fast. So
I'm like,
we don't want to sit and listen to the psychology part of it.
Oh, Mark Martin, here we are at 45 minutes. We did it again. So let's end it like this. NASCAR. First of all, I want to thank you for talking about Scott Bloomquist. And that story's not over. From what I know, there's going to be more to come out, and we'll just leave it right there. So, Mark, we have just witnessed one of the wildest 2 weeks in NASCAR history. We watched Austin Dillon lay it all on the line and clear out 2 cars to move into the championship. Then NASCAR 3 days later said, hold on, you get to win the race, you get to keep the money and the trophy, but it don't even count. You don't get to go to the championship. And listen, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a dear friend of yours and mine, and I know you've already talked about it there, but maybe some people, maybe we're going to bring something a little different up right here. When you watch that, Uh, you said 2 words on X. You said, "Good grief."
I was watching it by myself downstairs, and I laughed out loud. Look, I was entertained.
Yeah.
You know, like that's probably the most outrageous one I've ever seen right there. You know, it wouldn't have been if it had just been joy, but getting 2 in one whack, man, it was huge. But you know, so I'll give it a 10 for entertainment. Um, Obviously, it was over the line. Um, Obviously, I'm not a big fan of that. I've come to accept bump and runs, you know, or even running a guy high, because that's the day and age we're in now. It wouldn't fly back in our day, but you know that was over the line, and you know NASCAR was in a horrible situation. I don't know how they could win. I think, you know, I neither agree or disagree with what they did. I understand what they did, and I'm kind of in the middle. You know, I don't. The move was fun to watch. I mean, I don't know who in my era. I don't know who had the balls to do that.
No, and let me add this because I was on the receiving end of it. That's why I'm going to comment on this part. If I did something wrong, Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, Dale Sr., Terry Labonte, Dave Marcus, you guys were going to take me. You were going to take me between the trailers and you was going to chew my ass out. And you was going to make me feel this small. I don't know how it changed, but I just think back then, it was true. We did police ourselves because, you know, that's the way it was. And now it's not like that. So I just want to say that it didn't fly back then because of what I just said. You would have kicked my ass verbally back then.
It was policed by the drivers back then. There's no going back. You may as well embrace it. It's the racing that we have today, and you know you can go into all the reasons that it leads us to that. But you know, I watch racing all the time. Late models, dirt and asphalt. The dirt's still, in my opinion, still pretty clean. The dirt late models are, and the mods pretty clean. But man, those asphalt late models, it's just every single race, and that's what you're going to have in NASCAR coming up in all 3 divisions. That's what you see and what you have. So embrace it. That's what we have. I love racing, and I got to laugh. I got to laugh out of Austin Dillon, and I felt bad for NASCAR for having to make a call at all because it would have been much better if drivers could have handled it, but they can't. It's beyond that.
I'm going to say this. I feel like, now, hang with me. This is a Bloomquist moment in my brain.
Okay.
We would go to McDonald's, and if we waited 3 minutes for our food, we were screaming and hollering, "Oh my God, I've been waiting 3 minutes." Then this came about, and we got instant gratification of news. So today, if the people watched the way you and Rusty raced and Mark Martin, you took care of your equipment because the equipment wouldn't last as good. If we tried to race today, like we raced back then, the people would fall asleep.
Oh, they'd throw us out of the place. Yeah.
So now they said, okay, in this era, we're going to run stage racing because we want these drivers to drive so hard. And I think because of what I just said, that's why we're where we're at now. You know,
that's one.
Tell me what the other one is.
Double file restarts, green, white checkers, equal cars. You can't pass, aero dependent cars, winner take all, win you in. All these things lead to that. You know, you're right in a sense, but there are more components to that. You know, all those things lead, and you know the racing was good when Rusty and I raced in the 90s. It was fabulous, but it's not good enough for today. I mean, people still watch it. It's still fun to watch, but it's a whole different thing. Oh, I forgot. I left out the lack of power.
Yeah.
You know, so in one lap, Joey Logano can't get any further than he got, and he still wasn't safe. Well,
Yeah.
that's what they want. We got, they have to make it entertainment.
Right.
They have to make it entertainment. So taking the power away also plays into that. You can't get away from one another. You double file them on the restarts.
Wow.
You put it all on the line. You see where it's all going. The intensity builds with every piece and component, and it just that's what we have. And the new generation sees one hell of a spark fest.
Yeah, and instead of me using a curse word, I would say it's a blank show. I call it everything you just said. I call it scrambled eggs, buddy. When, like you just said, everybody got same horsepower, same car, double file restart. We go down in one, it's going to be scrambled eggs.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, Mark Martin, you've been wonderful. Listen, thank you so much. And there's more to always talk about, everybody. We can ask more questions, but here we are. And thank you so very much, Mark Martin. And hey, where are you at? It looks good behind you.
Yeah, this is my shop. I'm doing a little tinkering here in my shop. I come here about every day and tinker on things, and just loving life. And I am coming to your place for coffee with Kenny. I'm gonna make an appearance one of these days. I don't know when, because it seems like I've been awful busy, but I'm coming to St. Louis. I'm coming to see you, park that coach out there by your shop, and do coffee with Kenny.
I can't wait, Mark. My place, you and Rusty are just like above me I just got a normal house. So don't expect a lot. I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to make sure we clean everything up and have my grass cut. But I'm still proud of what I got. And I'm looking forward to you and maybe Arlene and Matt coming up the driveway. I got a big hill, put it in low.
Okay.
It's all concrete, but we live on a hill. Herman's Hill.
Hey, I got that twin turbo on it. I can go up any hill.
All right, everybody. Well, listen, you heard from the great Mark Martin. Once again, this is Catching Up with Mark Martin. This is a new segment, and we might try to reach out to Tony Stewart. It's been 2.5 years since we talked to Tony. And listen, everybody, we are in podcast form. This is a good long one, so you're going to listen to Mark on the way to work in the morning, and then you're going to turn it back on and listen to Mark on your way back home. We are on Spotify and iTunes. And until the next Catching Up with whoever it's going to be. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you, man. It was fun.
Bye-bye, everybody.